What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and we're diving into another member from Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji's 2025 undrafted free agent class in wide receiver Jamaal Pritchett out of South Alabama. And taking a look at some of the analyst and outside perspectives of our undrafted free agent class, there's many people that consider this to be a pretty decent steal, right? I think the highest projections for him I saw were 6th to 7th round. So you're not talking about, a Leonard Taylor type prospect being picked up here. But in terms of what he can provide as a weapon, it seems like a really, really strong pickup for a player that has some significant upside and fits the speed profile, among other things that Aaron Glenn may have an aptitude for and be able to utilize with Tanner Engstrand and some creativity there. So he's coming in at 5'8", 175 pounds. So that Xavier Gipson type mold. You're not going to see too many people walking around on the NFL field with this particular size. And one of the things that separates him from even someone like Malachi Corley, for example, is there's not a ton of physicality in his game either. And so what I will give South Alabama a ton of credit for is they understood what the profile was, understood what the skill set and athleticism allowed him to do, and they took full advantage of that. And that's why you get the type of performance that you got from him coming out of the Sun Belt Conference. So he was an unranked recruit, but he did rack up 21 games as a starter within his 3 years, with South Alabama. Did earn himself a Senior Bowl invite, and he does have a cousin, Nehemia, that was drafted by the Seahawks in 2024. So you are talking about there being some level of bloodlines there. He's coming off of 2024, 91 catches for 1,126 yards and 9 touchdowns. He led his team in touchdowns as a junior back in 2023. And then in 2024, he earned himself first team All Sun Belt. And that came by virtue of being the first player to crack 1,000 yards in the Sun Belt. He also led the Sun Belt as a receiver with his 1,126 yards. And then he averaged 7.6 receptions per game, which also led the Sun Belt. So if all that wasn't enough, he did also earn an 88.2 PFF grade against zone coverage specifically, and that was the highest mark against any wide receiver that was eligible in this draft class. So he started things off at Tuskegee Division II school before moving over to South Alabama, and took him a little bit to find his footing, primarily being used on special teams. And then that senior season, you really start to see things explode for him as the coaching staff got familiar and as he found a way to continue to develop himself. And when you look at him, I think the things that are going to excite you is obviously the speed, right? At his pro day, he didn't get a combine invite, but at his pro day, he ran a 4.39, has some other decent numbers in terms of agility and explosion. He's a run after the catch threat, and I think a lot of this has to do with not only the vision that he shows as a punt returner, but also just in general, right? He needs to have his head on a swivel, and he needs to be on high alert and kind of enter a zone anytime he's touching the ball, because just being honest here, he can get killed at the drop of a dime with guys looking to barrel down on him instantly, right? So he needs that 4.39 speed, and he obviously needs to be aware of where blockers are, where defenders are coming from at all times. And I think it shows with his ability to navigate and push to get vertical as soon as possible. You'll obviously get the punt return ability with him, and I think that's going to be the main calling card if he finds his way onto this team, stealing the job from someone like an Xavier Gipson, for instance, and maybe even outright replacing him. Rapid foot speed is something that you get really excited about with him, right? Watching his ability to navigate laterally and be able to put some people on skates, be able to get them on their, at the back of their ankles, falling on their heels, and then not having a chance to even play catch up with him once he puts that foot in the ground and starts driving towards the end zone. It's a thing of beauty, right? And so I don't think he has true like game breaking speed in terms of what you see with Arian Smith when it comes to getting vertical, but when it comes to going east to west and then being able to break something off, if he can get a decent enough foot or two on a defender, it's night time. Quick twitch, short area mover. Again, I think all of that just comes by virtue of needing to navigate traffic and understanding how he's going to make an impact on a football field if given the opportunity to. And there's a level of urgency with him, I think, at least with every touch that I can appreciate. It's never him just waiting forever and a day for blocks to develop and things. He's going to take what's there, but he also has this Le'Veon Bell-like ability, I would say, to allow some of these zones to get created and open up instead of forcing the issue, which is why he was such effective with the ball in his hands. And then ultimately, for the small size, I would say he's a decent enough natural hand catcher, not letting a ton of things get into his body. He's looking to get it and go. And there's going to be some drawbacks. Of course, the build, you're talking about a slot only type player, and if he is lined up on the outside, it's going to come. This could be an opportunity and a pro all in the same time, right? I mentioned this earlier, but the team understood how to utilize him, and a lot of that came by a result of pre-snaps motion, and then of course a lot of short reads, whether that was behind the line of scrimmage or within 5 yards. So you can look at that and say this guy won't exist without manufactured touches, or you can also say this is something we look to implement within our scheme. He would be the perfect person for us to utilize this with, as long as we can execute on the blocking, right? You don't have questions about him catching the ball. You don't have questions about his ability to read those blocks and then break something big off. Arm length, it's not going to be there either, right? It's not like he has significantly big hands or anything to help you out either. So he's not going to present a strong target. And for Justin Fields, you can question the accuracy enough to say, will this be somebody that he can lock in with and make big plays if it comes to something developing down the field or anything of that type of nature? He's going to have to be spot on. For example, if Jamaal Pritchett is on the field and he is the intended target. Severely limited by anyone getting physical with him. And so you have the guys that just are relatively stronger or just a couple inches taller than him and a decent amount heavier, right? 20 to 30 pounds probably on average in most cases. That in addition to looking at his release package, and I think you can say that there's going to need to be some kind of refinement there, right? Whether it's figuring out how to work with the delayed release, whether it's figuring out how to use some of that lateral agility in order to, create some false steps on the DB, and then you're going to have to try to make a move right out of the gate, right? I'm thinking this is a guy that's going to have to develop not only a route that he can get into out of his third to fifth step, but then, of course, again, you need kind of that instant distance just because there's not going to be the catch radius there, and some of these guys are going to be able to recover and stuff a lot quicker at the next level. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, I think comp-wise for him, you can look at someone like Andy Isabella as probably a grandiose vision of maybe what he can become, but if all he ends up being is a borderline elite punt returner for us and a guy that can come in, run some jet sweeps and stuff when Arian Smith needs a breather, and or be on the field in tandem with him and just have kind of a speed package out there and become the gadget guy that maybe Malachi Corley was supposed to be, as a UDFA, I think that's a huge win, right? So we'll see what happens here. I think this is definitely a special teams focus aspect, and then it just so happened to help that he has the speed to come with it and some of the accolades and kind of maybe not the same way in like a Nick Nash, but when you look at him on paper and you see what he can do, it's up there. So let me know what you guys think, though. Jamaal Pritchett seems like he could be a fairly underrated value here for us, but I don't see him having that, I don't even want to say star-studded, but that slot receiver impact that you get where at this point you can get number one production from a variety of roles, right? Garrett Wilson being more of like a flanker type guy, which is fine for us, right? Versus having an X receiver being your one, versus having someone like, the Rams build where you have your slot guy primarily being your top one. I don't really see him being that consistent impact guy for us, but more so of just the occasional guy that brings some dynamic ability to the field, which will spring big plays and different things like that. But again, let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you again. Peace.